Hi there, I'm Christine Zips, and today we are continuing our journey along the theme of Wi-Fi in schools. That's the general theme, and I'm joined with the co-founders of the National Association for Children in Safe Technology, Diane Hickey and Rachel Newmer. Today's topic we're going to be discussing involves why are all the schools out there using wireless technology? How did that even come about? So who would like to begin on that?
Chris, this is just such a very important question for us to answer today. And basically, if you said I had to answer this question in like 3 sentences or less, I would just say that the wireless technology, the infrastructure that's in place in our schools, is there to support what is known as digital learning, which also includes Common Core. Common Core is basically a set of standards that's been imposed upon all the school districts across the country to make life easier for the people, the globalists, I guess you could say, who are trying to implement a one world education system that requires a uniform set of standards. Now, these set of standards, they often say are, high standards, but in actuality, they really are not. They wanted this set of standards put in place in all of our schools across all 50 states so that it would make it easier for the education technology programmers to make curriculum, digital curriculum. So that makes everything seamless. It makes the curriculum seamless. It makes the assessments seamless. And that's why they were so insistent on putting it into our schools across the country. And what happened, this is an interesting thing that happened when everybody was very, very distracted by the collapse of our economy in 2009. What happened is our federal government, through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, they had 4 assurances that they made to the state governments, basically saying that if you don't fulfill our request, that you meet these 4 assurances, then you're not going to get federal funding for education. So the number one assurance that states had to make in order to receive federal funding is that they were going to adopt a set of what they claimed were internationally benchmarked standards, and they considered the Common Core to be that. Now, we've had a discussion about this very recently, and it is, and I can show people the information, the background supporting documentation that shows that the Common Core standards are not internationally benchmarked. They are not the very best standards that exist in the world. Mm-hmm. So, and that's very important for people to understand, is that although they claim that the standards are higher, better, clearer than standards that had already existed in the different states, in actuality, the standards just are mediocre at best, and they allow more students to graduate. So what they're trying to do is increase the rates of graduation in all the states in order to make students ready for college and career ready.
Yeah,
which they can go to a vocational school. Really, we're not talking about superior academics here at all whatsoever.
It, I-
It's,
it
like I said,
almost it
mediocre.
almost seems like it's tied in with getting grants and, you know, fulfilling those obligations. And, you know, it's all about the politics and funding and lobbying, and the poor kids are just kind of like collateral damage along the way, it sounds like.
You know, maybe we can talk about what digital learning looks like, this Common Core. What did it usher in, and what the classrooms look like?
Great idea, Diane. Yes.
Yeah, well, digital learning, I mean, it just sounds pretty harmless. I mean, I don't really, you know, from what I knew about computers and, you know, in education, everything, because my background is in education, you know, it doesn't sound too bad. You know, you think, oh, maybe they just like do some word processing and typing and maybe, you know, some visiting websites and stuff like that. But it is far more comprehensive than that, and far more far more invasive is what I would call it. And so I know we may get to it in one of our other segments, but I will just give everybody an overview of what they mean by digital learning. It encompasses so much more, like I said. Their goal is to make learning, which is not really learning, take place all online. And it requires access to ubiquitous wireless networks for anytime, anywhere, 24/7 access, or 24/7 learning. And that's whether it's at school, in the community, in the school bus, in your house. And every child and every teacher gets a device. And of course, we have the Common Core too. You got to have those. They're not, well, we've talked about this, they're not really high standards. They're not the best in the world, but they're considered internationally benchmark standards, which would be the Common Core or something comparable like we have here in Alaska. And then of course, there's data collection. They collect reams and reams of data on your children, on your family.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes, through the devices.
It made me start to wonder about this business model. And so I dug into it, and I found that really this is about tracking us, it's about monetizing our attention, and it has led to some of the incredible monopoly power, which you see in the numbers you just laid out.
You know, you talk about, it's so fascinating to hear about your son and that the video game industry.
So many people have that story.
We do. I mean, my son is 8 and he's really into it now, video games, and I'm seeing sort of the addiction forming on this. But, you know, you talk about their personal data.
Yeah.
They have so much information on you, and they're able to monetize it.
Absolutely. You know, data is the new oil in the economy. You know, as we shift into a digital world in which really everything is going to be about information, how much you can collect, what you can analyze, we are the raw material. We are being mined, we are being watched, and regulators are starting to realize this. You know, we're always playing catch up when there's a new business model like this, trying to figure out what the companies are doing.
And it's constant. It's intended to be from cradle to career and beyond. And there's constant progress monitoring, which is considered surveillance. And then, of course, there's something called social emotional learning, which is a huge part of digital learning, which is in itself really not academic whatsoever. What they're basically saying is, oh, you don't need academics anymore because life is going to get really hard. And you're just going to need to learn how to cope with your feelings. And this is really what is going to make you a successful person, not academics.
And one thing I'd like to mention, that with this data harvesting of the children, not only is it invasion of privacy done without the consent, aren't they doing that to kind of package that and hoard that and sell that data to third-party investors? I mean, this information about our children is priceless to many who have interest in that.
It's a very intimate information.
I'm wondering, just kind of to move on a little bit, you know, where we might find this mandate for wireless infrastructure in schools, now that it's in place, is there a place that we can look to see where that came about, the origination for this?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with the international level, and then I'll move down into the federal level for
Good
you.
idea.
This information comes from what I found out about the open education resource, which comes from the UN. The UN recommends that states, that's UN member states, which the United States has been a member of the UN for many years now, within their capacities and authority, should facilitate enabling environments for use of information and communications technologies. And it says, this is a quote, bridge the digital divide by developing adequate infrastructure, in particular affordable broadband connectivity, widespread mobile technology, and reliable electrical power supply. Improve media and information literacy and encourage the development and use of OER in open standard digital formats. Okay, so that's one excerpt, and I will try to see here where I got that from. It comes from the 2012 World Open Education Resources, oh, excuse me, I'll say that again. It's World Open Educational Resources Congress, UNESCO, Paris, June 20 to 22nd, 2012. It's the Paris OER Declaration, the World OER Congress. So that's one example of where that mandate comes from. And then here's another one. This comes from 2017. It's more recent. This is the Second World OER Congress. It was held in, I can't pronounce this name, somewhere in the Ukraine. Lujib, I can't pronounce it, sorry, but OER Action Plan 2017, the Second World OER Congress. It says the installation of robust wireless infrastructure in schools and elsewhere is one of the preconditions necessary to support personalized digital learning, which is contingent on OERs.
Say this program is a really good thing for education for the children, and I guess that's quite up to a debate.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be wireless devices? Can they not learn the same material by having a fiber optic connection wired? Does it have to be wireless?
Well, you don't have the mobility. You don't have the mobility if you're wired. They want the mobility. They want access to little human beings 24/7, 7 days a week. When they say, we want children to have access 24/7, anytime, anywhere, they're really not talking about meeting children's needs.
No.
They're talking about meeting their needs. The corporations have needs, and they want to know what your kid is doing anytime, anywhere. So they're considering your child as a commodity, and they're grooming them for a lifetime in the global workforce is what they're doing.
Right.
They don't tell you that. They don't offer that up. It's not disclosed when you send your kid to school.
There's so much that's not disclosed, about the hazards of the wireless technology, and talking about, training the kids. I've seen a meme where they have a stream of children all looking unique, and their different outfits and stuff, and they're happy, and they're all walking toward this gate, and then they're being spit out the other end of this wall like little robots, soldiers. And that's an over dramatization, I guess, but kind of speaks to what's going on there. This has all been very interesting. And one thing I was kind of curious about, I'm not feeling totally solid on, you've mentioned how all of this, can't even think of the word of it, but all of this has been coming down from the federal level and down to our local. Do you have some examples that might help us understand what that looks like, feels like?
Sure. So, you know, the U.S. is a member state of the UN. I don't know if we've actually pulled out from the UN or not, but
No,
we have been. Okay, so we have been, and we are right now. So it trickles down to the federal level. And so that would come through the Department of Education, the Office of Education Technology. And I'm going to read you just a little bit from a document from 2010 called Transforming American Education, Learning Powered by Technology, which comes out of the Office of Educational Technology, Department of Ed, U.S. Department of Ed. And basically, I mean, this is a mandate. It says infrastructure, access, and enable. All students and educators will have access to a comprehensive infrastructure for learning when and where they need it. Ensure students and educators have broadband access to the internet and adequate wireless connectivity both in and out of school. So that's a mandate. And then students, and there's a little explanation that they include. It says students and educators need adequate broadband bandwidth for accessing the internet and technology-based learning resources. Adequate should be defined as the ability to use the internet in school, on the surrounding campus, throughout the community, and at home. It should also include simultaneous use of high bandwidth resources such as multimedia, communication and collaboration environments, and communities. And that can be found on page 19 of the introduction to that report. And then there's more about it says broadband everywhere, and you can find that on page 52 of that document. A crucial element of an infrastructure for learning is a broadband network of adequate performance and reach, including abundant wireless coverage in and out of school buildings. I didn't make that up. That came right out of that document. Adequate means enough bandwidth to support simultaneous use by all students and educators anywhere in the building and the surrounding campus to routinely use the web, multimedia, and collaboration software. The activities of the FCC and the Department of Commerce, National Telecommunications and Information Administration, oh boy, that's a lot to say, Broadband Technology Opportunities Program, to bolster the nation's broadband provisioning are essential to learning lifelong and life-wide. Anyway, that's where that came from. If you need me to.
Amazing, amazing. And they put out these blanket statements, and all of their titles make it sound so official. And, you know, when they say that, I don't know, I don't even know how they substantiate that, but interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, there's one one other quote I just like to share because it's very telling. There's a lot here. I mean, I find evidence of it throughout the documents, throughout the federal documents. But this actually comes from the State Education Technology Directors Association. And by the way, every head of education, every head of Department of Education for every single state belongs to this organization, which is the State Education Technology Directors Association, or SETA. And this is what they say. Closely related to the funding of devices is ensuring sufficient broadband in schools. As discussed in SETA's 2012 report, the Broadband Imperative recommendations to address K through 12 infrastructure needs, schools and students' homes need reliable, robust broadband wireless or Wi-Fi connectivity to implement a rich digital learning environment. So that's, you know, they want it all over the place.
Right. Oh my goodness. So thank you for elaborating. It makes it a little bit more clear.